Hey, buddy, welcome to AV Cyberactive. We have a special guest for you. She's a seasoned cybersecurity professional with a lot of years put into her field, and we'll be discussing today a wide range of topics into cybersecurity. So stay tuned till the end for some exciting pointers and tips for who are looking into build their careers into cybersecurity. Her name is Likita. Hey, Likita, how are you?
Hi, Avinash. Thank you for a lovely intro, and I'm very excited to do this.
All right. So let's get started with your introduction first.
So, my name is Likita, and I'm working as a cloud security specialist at a multinational company. Previous to this, I was working at a telecom organization as a network security SOC analyst.
That's great to hear. How about you tell us about your how you got into cybersecurity and a few pointers who are interested in them.
So I did my engineering in telecommunication, and right after that, I started working as a NOC, network engineer, at one of the top telecommunication organizations. And eventually, I started hearing about data science, and I was very interested in it. I did a couple of certifications in data science, and I was looking for opportunities within company or outside my organization. And that's when I accidentally came across security operations. So I went through the couple of topics in security domain, and I had a couple of my friends who were working in security. I asked how the work is. It only made me more confused about the domain and the kind of work I'm going to be doing. However, I found it so interesting. I decided to go for it. So, right, they took an internal interview and I was selected. I got placed as a security analyst.
That's awesome. That's such a great opportunity. Right now, cybersecurity is hot in the market, and I sometimes feel lucky that we're into cybersecurity. Wouldn't you agree with that?
The feeling is mutual. I feel so lucky to be. I was not even looking for an opportunity, and I was very lucky to be in the right place. And the work is really interesting. There's something new to learn every day.
Right.
So yeah, I feel lucky too.
Exactly. I too didn't plan for it to come into cybersecurity. And then if you look at the statistics, a lot of people who are into cybersecurity, they came out of because they were interested into the field, not because they had a background into some IT or some other things. So that's really interesting about cybersecurity. You come here because you're really interested to do this.
I want to share a funny thing.
Go ahead.
So initially, when I was checking out cybersecurity, I thought it's all about ethical hacking.
Right.
And I was really worried. Maybe this is a job for only people who like coding. So I was really not sure if I'm cut out for the job. But there is so many different functionalities within cybersecurity, and even people with very less programming interest can get and do really well in it.
Exactly. That's what I was referring to. You don't need to have any coding knowledge or you don't need to be a geek around. You just need to have that zeal to be in cybersecurity, starting off really with investigations, governance, firewall policies, identity access management. There's so many things. And the cybersecurity is like a combination of all of these and uplifting all of these together and bringing it whole together into a single platform.
Couldn't agree more.
Right. So what are a few things that are required, according to you, to kickstart a career into cybersecurity from your perspective as for a security specialist?
So firstly, assuming that you are working in a different domain or you're a fresher and who wants to make it into cybersecurity, first thing you could do is get a certification. And
right.
You could just go ahead with a beginner level certification, which covers wide topics within security domain. And it is better if you make it a non-vendor certification. For example, there is AZ500, which is explicitly an Azure certification. So if you were to get a beginner certification like that, you could apply for Azure roles only. But if you were to do something like CompTIA Security Plus or CC from IC Square, you are eligible to apply for many disciplines within cybersecurity like SOC, VA, threat intelligence, and compliance. So my first advice would be to go for a certification this also does one more thing. It builds your foundation and adds to your resume.
Right.
For example, if you're out there hunting jobs, many of these jobs make mandatory requirement to have a certification. So by having it, you're just getting an edge. Secondly, go through as many interview questions as possible, because I appeared for more than 50 plus interviews and I saw pattern there. Basically, you can expect network questions and cybersecurity questions. And by going through common interview questions, you're enabling yourself to answer in a certain way. For example, if the question could be like, tell me about session layer from OSI model. So when interviewer asks you such question, he's expecting you to know which protocols run in session layer, what are the types of attacks we can expect, and what are the controls that we can implement to thwart those attacks.
I see.
Right. So just by going through as many questions as possible, you know what to expect from the interview.
Right, right.
And third and the least is to follow blogs or keep yourself posted on cybersecurity news from really good platforms. So this shows your passion to cybersecurity. You are someone who is ready to learn on a daily basis. So that will also give you an edge that is an advantage for you. So I think by doing these three things, a person can stand out in the interview.
Well, those are some really fantastic pointers here you said, and I especially like the last one, that following on, it depends how invested you in cybersecurity by being able to tell what do you do in your free time, right? So you go through blogs, you contribute to the community, the entire cybersecurity community. That's a really excellent pointer. Now, how about you did mention about your certifications, right? Tell me something about how to go about starting with the certifications. How did you begin your journey?
When I wanted to do the certification, I considered only intermediate certifications because I already had some experience in security, and this was my first certification, so I did not want to go for advanced level.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did a couple of things. Firstly, I went on YouTube and I went through success stories on YouTube, and I noticed that almost all of them, but not everyone, suggested for two resources. Professor Messer, and the other one was Tier Security textbook. So I got those two. And the second thing I did was decided on the date I was going to give the exam, because until you set the exam date, you will always be postponing. So I did those two things and I started preparing. I was feeling really comfortable because the topics are really well put and it was very relevant to the work I was doing. So, but as the exam date approached, I got a little nervous, and then I took Udemy question papers. I gave those mock tests, and I found that I was performing really well. It was satisfactory. Then it boosted my confidence to go ahead and give the exam. And yeah, so I'm now Security Plus certified.
Okay, that's excellent. Congratulations for having that credential earned, Security Plus credential. It is something that is widely been accepted across security community. And Professor Mesa, I did hear about him. He does a really good job on his YouTube videos. The way he explains the concepts, I really like them too. And it's also important to have the exam schedule so that you can get your mental clock started and running and ticking. That too helps give you that push so that you can go ahead and get yourself prepared for that big day, right?
Right. Professor Messer is an OG. He's been doing it for a really long time. He's one of the best.
Right. The entire security community likes him. I'm pretty sure about that. So would you like to share about your interviewing process and how you went about applying for different organizations and what sort of pointers, if there are any pointers that you would like to give?
Yeah, sure. So as soon as I completed my certification, I decided to start giving interviews because all the concepts were really fresh in my memory, and I was open to any functionality within cybersecurity. I was up for VA, threat intelligence, threat hunting, SOC, compliance. So, right. So my earlier job, I also had exposures. Not only as a SOC analyst, I also worked for VA, threat intelligence, endpoint detection and response. So I had the experience and I had the certification credentials. So I applied and that helped me a lot. So when you just look for SOC roles or just VA roles,
Mm-hmm.
it is obvious that you will get fewer calls, but by applying for multiple domains, you can get more calls. And that's what happened in my case. And I got many calls. I even got a couple of international uh, calls. Obviously, I couldn't make it. They were much more tough. So the pointers I would like to share is, say if you're preparing for SOC analyst interview, so you have to know that 50% of the interview is going to be network related and 50% is security related. And advanced further, just like further things you can work upon is MITRE framework. Know MITRE through and through, how it is applicable for attacks. If there is a phishing attack, how do you apply MITRE for that attack? And you will have those events, right? Events that get generated within SIM, know about those events.
Exactly, correct. I agree with you.
And if you are preparing for VA rules, and also in SOC, they will ask you, the general format would be to write down most recent events that you worked upon. So they might ask for one or two events for you to tell them how exactly you did an investigation. So that is the pattern. And if you are preparing for VA, I'd say you should know different kinds of scans that are there. There is compliance scans, there is vulnerability scan, and then how does your organization work when there is a 0-day vulnerability identified through and through, like patch management until the vulnerability is remediated? How is the process?
Right, right. The
And
incident management process and everything.
correct. And also by knowing a bit more details, when is patch Tuesdays and stuff like that,
Right.
that's also good. And if you are looking for threat hunting job, it's a bit more advanced than SOC, I would say. When the common thing I observed in threat hunting interviews is that they expect you to have worked on a compromised attack, like an attack that actually happened at your company and you worked on it. That is their expectation. So they don't prefer people who do not have an actual experience with attack.
Okay. So if you're getting into threat hunting, you should be have dealt with some kind of attacks or real-time attacks within your organization and know the process through and through, right?
Correct. And a tip for people there would be, it's highly possible that attacks happening at your institution or at your organization is very rare, but every organization has email servers and most of the outside communication passes through email servers. So just go through email server attacks and explain it really well for them. And a general advice for SOC and threat hunting would be to know many tools like Nmap, Wireshark,
Mm-hmm.
and open source tools like Abuse IP.
Correct, correct. And I also liked what you mentioned in the beginning that when you were trying for jobs and you did not want to limit yourself into one domain, you were trying for all the domains, like vulnerability management, security operations, and everything. So that too, kind of my story as well. When earlier back in the day when I was going for interviews, I didn't want to limit myself into just one domain. I was giving interviews for all the different domains wherever I would fit in because he was so hungry to get into cybersecurity.
That makes sense.
Right, right. So how about how many organizations did you apply for in your interviews? How many tries did you take? For me, it took a lot of tries before I actually got in.
I just recall that I appeared for more than 50 plus interviews,
Oh,
and at a couple of them it was really close. And one interesting interview was from an Australian organization.
oh,
So it was for a SOC role, and the way they conducted was they will give you a malicious file.
mhm.
You have to install the malicious file on your system, and obviously you will have anti-malware and it's going to block it. You are supposed to undo that and investigate on the malware and give them the complete analysis.
That's
Something that comes to my mind.
really interesting how organizations conduct interviews. So what are the platforms that you use to apply for to apply for interviews?
Right. So mainly it was Naukri and LinkedIn. So on Naukri, I took a subscription and that really helped. I saw significant increase in the calls that I was receiving.
Okay.
And they also ping you on Naukri and your resume gets highlighted. So I totally think Naukri subscription is worth it. And LinkedIn as well. I followed security professionals and I actively looked for postings.
Okay. That's excellent. That's an excellent advice that I hear from you. Do you have any tips or advice to how to ace those interviews? People who are just getting into cybersecurity, they would have a really tough time. So if they can get any pointers around how to crack that interview, that'll be really great.
First thing, if you're preparing for SOC L1 interviews, in the network part, just know about the popular protocols, ports, and in security part, know about routers, like basically network devices and firewalls, OSI model, and also some advanced level of attacks like cross-site scripting, MTMA, and other things like that. And also, you will get asked about the investigation, at least the initial basic level of investigation you should know about. So refer MITRE framework and what are those tactics, techniques, just know about them and how to perform static analysis, right? So these are some of the things. For L2 level, you can expect advanced questions like regex. Tell us how would you parse those events and syslog integration, SIM architecture, MITRE, and so on. And also, just to give yourself extra points, have a look at catch the flag activities. You must have heard about it, right?
Right, the CTFs, right.
Right. Just know about it and keep yourself updated with latest trends. And if you're into VA interviews, I found are relatively easier to tackle.
Oh,
Okay.
that's interesting. Would you like to explain some more?
Sure. So in VA, you will have those vulnerability reports, right? Just go through each and every term. What does it mean? What is CVSS score? Will the remediation be there? And what are those CVEs? What exactly is it? Basically, just know every single field in the vulnerability report. Know about 1 or 2 zero-day attacks and patch management. How is patch management related to VA? And what are ad hoc scans? What are quarterly scans? And know really well about the process. So you can expect sometimes you get asked tricky questions. So if there is a server, sometimes you get asked about VA versus penetration testing. And also they might ask you, the scans that you're performing will have an impact on these servers which are public facing, and it might have an impact on the business. So are you still going to go ahead and do the vulnerability scan?
Right.
So you will be asked questions on spot. Just think what is the most compliant thing to do there, and also once the vulnerability scan is completed, how is the result being used? Once you're thorough with the vulnerability assessment, just know what happens next. Once a company completes its scans, it's going to have a thorough view on what are low vulnerabilities that present, what are high vulnerabilities, and what are the accepted ones. So they update all this data on a risk matrix. So know a little bit about that. And if you're looking for threat intelligence jobs, just know which subscriptions that your organization is using and what are the other threat intelligence sources out there and what details will you communicate on a threat intelligence report. So basically it's the severity score, what are the impacted endpoints. So these are what is going to be communicated in threat intelligence. So know a little bit about that. And if you are working into endpoint detection and response, know how it works, how the agent works, and once something is detected, how it gets contained, and if PO is actually integrated with SIM, and how do you initiate incident response plan? How do you investigate using an EPO? So I think those are some of the tips I'd like to share.
All right, these are such interesting facts that you've told about getting into interview to ace those. I personally really like them, especially the part where you said about the vulnerability management, how it's different from regular SOC interviews, and you would have to plan to know about the risk heat matrix and all of those. This is something new to me as well, because it's been a while I've given any security interviews. So, Likta, how was your life in your previous organization where you were as a SOC analyst, and how is it different from your current role? Would you be able to explain something about that?
So previously, when I was a network security SOC analyst, my day-to-day looked a lot different as compared to my current role as a cloud security specialist, compliance specialist. So as a SOC analyst, you will have to work in routine shifts. So there will be morning, noon, and evening, night, all kinds of shifts. So you're constantly adapting. And also when in the shift, right, we'll have the SIM monitors. So basically for a project, every asset in that will be integrated with the syslog, and that forwards logs to a single centralized unit, and there the logs are correlated, and any anomaly or suspicious events is flagged on the screen. Each of these events have different severity, and based on the severities, they have to be prioritized. The SLAs will be different. If it's a very critical severity alert, you will have to action on within 2 hours, raise a P1 ticket and action on it. So if we have to action on it so quickly, you can imagine we have to continuously monitor. So SIMs are monitored 24/7 in case of a war room.
Right.
And you have to be very particular about the handover as well. As in morning shift people, as they are completing their shift, they give handover of everything that happened to the next shift person.
Right.
And this is going to be very precise. And as a SOC analyst, you will be held accountable whenever if there is a compromise and they go back and reverse engineer to the very minute, to the very second, and anyone who did not action on the incident will be held responsible. So everything is kept logged, monitored, and taken accountable for. And along with SOC role, so what I really liked about this SOC job was the investigation that we used to do.
Okay. Tell me something more about that then. Because the way you're explaining this, you see monitoring, and then you have endpoint detection logs coming in, and you would have to give handover. That sounds like a lot of stress on the job. How do you manage that?
It was stress when I was a beginner to the field, and as a beginner, you won't be as quick on your feet as you're expected to be. But as you get more and more experience, you can tell, you get to prioritize the things that you become habituated. So initially, I found it really difficult. It was just learning for the first 6 months as a SOC analyst, and only after 6 months is when I got comfortable.
Oh, so there's this learning curve that you have to go through, and then once you get used to it, and then you start enjoying it.
Right.
That's really interesting to know. All right, and you said currently you're as a cloud security specialist, right? How about that role? What challenges do you face, and is it as interesting as your SOC role, or is it different?
Totally different compared to SOC. So here I'm working as a compliance specialist. So the main job is to make sure that compliant policies are being implemented across the project that I'm responsible for. I review the policies in place and evaluate if the policies in place are as per our standards. And then if it is not, we will see what is the risk associated with it, and we'll ask the endpoint to to get in line with our standards. We also evaluate, say, if they're using certain type of authorization method. You can't just go and say, hey, this is not a secure authorization method. Just go about using something else. That's not how it works. So every device, we should see what is the operational impact it's going to cause. And if the assets currently in the network, are they compatible to adopt the new authorization method? So there is a lot involved there, weighing the risk and making sure compliant measures are put in place at the earliest And I also get to investigate on false positives and true positives. Again, I'm someone who loves investigation, so I really enjoy that part. And this is not just it. There's a lot more to it. It's 180-degree different from my previous role.
So it's a complete head turn around. So it's really different. So how are you able to manage that? Did that have as a learning curve as well in your current organization?
Oh, totally. Again, I think I almost took 6 months to actually get good grasp of. They was learning every single day, because every organization these days are taking their applications on cloud. So imagine the number of applications you're going to come across, and
Right.
it's a lot of steps.
So, hearing by what you're saying, it involves a lot of research, right? Because there are a lot of applications. As a security specialist, you're supposed to give your advice.
Right. That's how exactly.
Okay. Okay, that's excellent insight into your current job role. Thank you so much for sharing that. Do you have any last minute advice or last any tips that you would want to give to people who are listening to this, and any pointers that would really help them grow their career into cybersecurity?
Cybersecurity is a domain. As a domain is so vast, and there is something for everybody. There's
Right.
so many subdomains within cybersecurity. So all you have to do is research on them, what a day-to-day looks like in each of the subdomains, and get into the right career path. So the perks would be the job is not there is learning every single day. So it's very interesting.
It
There's
is.
job satisfaction, and there is good pay as well. It's an in-demand job. You can basically, when I was giving interviews, I got calls from many outside countries. So it's not easy, but the possibility of getting job outside India is also really high. So those are the perks. Coming to cons, from other jobs that I worked, I feel cybersecurity is needs much more investment. You have to learn on a daily basis, and you have to communicate with clients and within project, and be responsible and be accountable for your job. So if you're someone who does not like to learn a lot, and who wants very less stress, and then this might not be the domain for you.
Right. Right.
And there is a lot of competition as well, but there is equal amount of opportunities. And so though there is competition, there's a very good amount of opportunities. So those are the last minute tips.
Well, it was really, really interesting to talk to you. Even I got a lot about what's out there and what's been asked in the interview as well. Me, especially being a part of security operations, I also have some experience in working with security operations. I can say that I can vouch that all the information that you have given, that's accurate, 100% accurate. All right, Ligita, thank you so much for taking the time out today out of a busy schedule for this. And that's a wrap for today. If you have any further questions or any pointers or any websites that Ligita was referring to, I can certainly get you in touch with all of those. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, if you have any questions or topics you would like me to cover, leave a comment down below. And until next time, stay secure. Bye now.